She has to sleep on the sofa. Those 5 words, in a single second, destroyed the 67 years I had spent believing I knew what family love was. And the worst part was, they came from my own son's wife, who was divvying up the bedrooms of the vacation house that I had paid for, as if I were some homeless stray dog. But hold on, because what happened after I heard that sentence changed not just my life, but my whole family's, forever. And when you find out about the revenge I silently planned, you will understand why you should never, ever underestimate an American grandmother who has nothing left to lose. If you want to know how a 67-year-old woman became the worst nightmare of her manipulative daughter-in-law, subscribe now, because this story is going to give you goosebumps. My name is Eleanor. I am 67 years old. And what I'm about to tell you happened 3 months ago in a vacation rental house in Miami Beach, Florida, that I rented for $3,500. That money came from my savings, from the pension I've been diligently setting aside since I became a widow, dreaming of moments like this. A perfect week with my son Robert, my daughter-in-law Patrice, and my 2 grandchildren. What I didn't know was that, to Patrice, I wasn't a grandmother who deserved respect. I was just the wallet, paying for everything. I was standing there, hiding behind the kitchen door, like a thief in my own reservation, listening as Patrice explained the room assignments to her mother over the phone. Mom gets the master, Dad gets the second one, the kid's in the back. She has to sleep on the sofa. She didn't even have the respect to say my name. My heart felt like it wanted to pound right out of my chest. I felt the strength drain from my legs and had to grab the doorframe to keep myself from collapsing right there. Me? The woman who had worked 2 shifts at the factory to pay for Robert's college. The one who sold even my gold earrings to help him start his business. I was going to sleep on the sofa in the house I was paying for. But what came next completely destroyed me. "Oh, Mom, you'll see. Eleanor won't say a thing," she was saying. "She's one of those little old ladies who does anything to look good. She paid for the whole house without anyone even asking her to. Can you believe it? The women of her generation are like that, submissive. They just put up with everything so they don't cause trouble." Little old lady. Submissive. As if my 67 years of life, my sacrifices, my dignity, were worth nothing. In that moment, something inside me broke. It wasn't just my heart. It was that image I had of myself as the understanding mother-in-law, the grandmother who always says yes, the one who never causes problems. That night, while they toasted on the deck with the wine I had bought, celebrating their free vacation, I stood alone in that kitchen, looking out at the ocean. And for the first time in 3 years, since I became a widow, I didn't cry tears of sadness. I cried tears of pure rage. Robert, my Robert, where was he while his wife was humiliating me? On the deck, yelling, "Honey, the Wi-Fi is working perfectly for my video conferences on the family vacation his mother had paid for. But Patrice made a mistake that night, a mistake that would cost her everything she had built by manipulating my son. Because when you think you have someone completely under your thumb, you relax, you get careless. And careless women leave their cell phones unlocked in places where submissive old ladies can find them. What I discovered on that phone in the early hours of the morning not only confirmed that Patrice was worse than I imagined. She was a monster who had been planning to completely destroy me. But what she didn't know was that she had just awakened the wrong beast. Because when a woman my age decides she's not going to be submissive anymore, she doesn't do it quietly. And when she decides it's time for justice, oh my God, the justice that's coming. What I found on that cell phone chilled my blood and set in motion the most perfect revenge you can imagine. To understand how I ended up in that kitchen crying with rage while my daughter-in-law divvied up my house, I have to tell you the story of a woman who believed that unconditional love always returns multiplied. A woman who was wrong. My history with Robert began when I was just 23 years old and was widowed with an 8-month-old baby in my arms. Robert's father died in a construction accident, and I was left alone with a baby and no inheritance except debts and a broken heart. Do you know what it's like to wake up every day at 4 in the morning to get to the textile factory? Working 8 hours sewing school uniforms, and then rushing to Mrs. Linda's house to pick up your son and take him to your second job, cleaning offices until 10 at night. I did that for 18 years straight. Robert was my world, my reason for existing. Every single dollar I earned had his name on it. When he turned 5 and told me, "Mommy, I want to be an engineer like Pete's dad," I promised him he would be, even if I had to work myself to death. And I kept that promise. I sold his father's wedding ring to pay for his private high school. I sold my gold earrings, the only ones I owned, for his college textbooks. I even worked Saturdays and Sundays to pay for his engineering supplies. When he graduated with honors from the Technological University, I was in the front row with my dress mended 3 times, but with the chest most swelled with pride in all of the United States. Robert was a good son, hard-working, respectful, loving. After graduating, he got a job at a construction company, and 2 years later, he came home with bright eyes, telling me, "Mum, I want to start my own company. I have a partner. We have the projects. We just need initial capital." Initial capital? I had exactly $1,200 saved after 20 years of work. I gave it all to him, no questions asked, no conditions, because that's what American families do. When a son has a dream, the mother makes it possible. Robert's company grew. In 5 years, he already had contracts for more than $500,000 annually. He bought his house, his truck, started dressing sharp, and I was still in my little 2-bedroom house. But I was happy. Happy because my sacrifice had been worth it. Until Patrice arrived. I met her one Sunday after church. Robert introduced her to me in the churchyard. "Mum, meet Patrice. She's an administrator. She works at a bank." It was clear he was in love. His eyes were shining in a way I hadn't seen since he was a child. Patrice was kind to me from day one, maybe too kind, always with a perfect smile, always saying the right words. "Mrs. Eleanor, how lucky Robert is to have such a hard-working mother. Mrs. Eleanor, all the love you put into raising him is obvious. Mrs. Eleanor, Robert tells me you made a lot of sacrifices for him." At first I thought it was good manners. Later I understood it was strategy. I ignored the first signs because I didn't want to see what was happening. Like when Robert started cancelling our Sunday lunches because Patrice had family commitments, or when he stopped calling me every day like he had for 30 years. "It's just that Patrice says married men need their space," he would explain, as if apologizing. Space? I wasn't taking his space. I just wanted to keep being his mother. But Patrice was smart, very smart. She never attacked me directly, never disrespected me to my face. She was more subtle, more poisonous, like when she would organize family dinners and forget to invite me. "Oh, Mrs. Eleanor, I am so sorry. It completely slipped my mind to call you. It's just that there are so few of us. I didn't think—" But she would invite her mother, her sisters, her aunts. I would always find out later when Robert would tell me what a great time they'd had, or when she started changing the decor in Robert's house. "Patrice has great taste, Mum," he would say. "The house looks more modern." My pictures with Robert from when he was a child disappeared from the refrigerator. The throw pillows I had crocheted for the sofa were replaced with more elegant ones. Little by little, my presence was erased from my own son's house. The hardest blow came when the grandchildren were born. David and Sophia, my loves, my reasons for living after I became a widow. Patrice used them as a weapon. The children need a routine, Mrs. Eleanor. They can't be visiting so much. The children get confused with so many different rules. It's better if they only come on weekends. Weekends turned into once a month. Once a month turned into special occasions. Special occasions turned into whenever we can make it work. And Robert, my Robert, just let it happen. Every time I said something, he would respond, "Mum, Patrice is right. She studied these things. She knows how to manage a modern family." Modern family. Since when did respect for your parents go out of style? But what really broke my heart was the day I turned 65. I waited all morning for Robert to arrive with the kids. I had made his favourite, turkey and mashed potatoes. I had bought a small pound cake at the bakery. I had set the table nicely with the tablecloth I embroidered when he was little. Robert arrived alone at 8 at night, rushing with a look of guilt. "Sorry, Mum," he said. "Our day got complicated. Patrice organised a family lunch and—" "A family lunch without me?" I asked him, and I saw his gaze break. "Well, it's just that it was also Patrice's cousin's birthday, and they decided to combine them, and—" That's when I understood. I wasn't family anymore. I was the awkward obligation that had to be tended to when there was spare time. That night, alone in my kitchen, eating cold turkey and mashed potatoes and looking at my untouched pound cake, I made a decision. I wasn't going to beg for love. I wasn't going to plead for attention. I was going to maintain my dignity and wait for Robert to remember who had been there when his world fell apart. 3 years passed after that birthday. 3 years in which I tried to be the perfect mother-in-law, the grandmother who doesn't cause trouble, the woman who makes do with the crumbs of affection she's given. Until that invitation to Miami Beach came along, which I thought was the golden opportunity to get my family back. How foolish I was. But that night, hidden behind the door, listening to Patrice call me a submissive old lady, I understood something that changed me forever. I hadn't lost an ungrateful son. I had raised a good man who was being manipulated by a calculating woman. And if Patrice thought she could continue playing games with me as she had for 5 years, she was about to find out how wrong she was. Because what I found on her cell phone in the early hours of the morning didn't just confirm her intentions. It showed me how far she was willing to go to take the only thing I had left, my home. The call came one Tuesday afternoon while I was watering my geraniums in my small backyard. It was Patrice, and her voice sounded strangely cheerful, almost affectionate. "Mrs. Eleanor, how are you? Look, I have a wonderful idea, and I wanted to run it by you." Run it by me. That word made me feel important for the first time in years. Patrice never consulted me about anything. She didn't even tell me when family plans changed. "Tell me, honey," I replied. And to this day, I'm embarrassed to admit the excitement that was in my voice. I was thinking it's time for the whole family to take a vacation together. The kids are growing up so fast. And you, well, you look a little tired lately. What do you say we all go to the beach, like in the movies? A big house facing the ocean, everyone spending time together, making up for lost time. My heart started beating faster. Had she said making up for lost time? Had Patrice finally realized how distant we had become? "Oh, honey, that sounds wonderful," I told her, and my voice cracked a little. "It's been so long since we've had real family time." "Exactly. That's why I thought of you first. Robert's so busy with work and I'm so busy with the kids that sometimes we forget how important it is to be united. Especially now that my mum is so lonely since she was widowed last year." Her mum? That's where the alarms should have gone off. But I was so excited by the idea of a whole week with Robert and my grandchildren that I didn't quite process what she'd said. "And where were you thinking?" I asked, already imagining myself building sandcastles with David and Sophia. Well, I was looking, and Miami Beach has some gorgeous vacation houses with a private pool, ocean view, a yard for the kids to play in. It would be perfect. The problem is, she paused, and like a fool, I took the bait. What's the problem, honey? Well, with the kids' school expenses and Robert's business expansion, we're a little tight this month. But don't worry, we'll find a way. Maybe instead of a week, we could just go for a long weekend to a simpler hotel. A simpler hotel. I had already dreamed of that house facing the ocean, of waking up listening to the waves and watching my grandchildren run on the beach. How much would that house you mentioned cost? I asked, although I already knew where this conversation was going. Oh, Mrs. Eleanor, I don't want to worry you with those things. It's about $3,500 for the week, but it's super well equipped. It has 5 bedrooms, a full kitchen, a deck with an ocean view, even a cleaning service included. But as I said, don't worry, we'll find something cheaper. $3,500. Exactly what I had saved in my emergency account. The money I had put together, dollar by dollar, for 3 years, saving everything I could from my pension, just in case. And that's where Patrice showed how smart she was at manipulation. You know what, Mrs. Eleanor? Forget about it. I don't want you to feel obligated to anything. Robert and I will find a way to take a vacation later, when the financial situation improves. The kids will understand. The kids will understand. My grandchildren, who had asked me last week when we were going to the beach together, were they going to understand that Grandma hadn't made the effort to take them? No, wait, Patrice, I quickly said. Let me think about it. But there was nothing left to think about. In my mind, I was already seeing David learning to swim in that private pool, Sophia collecting seashells on the beach, Robert relaxed for the first time in years, remembering why he loved his mum so much. You know what, honey? I'll pay for the house. There was a silence on the other end of the line that lasted barely a second, but now, remembering it, it feels eternal. A silence in which I'm sure Patrice smiled like a shark that has just smelled blood. Really, Mrs. Eleanor? Oh no, I can't let you do that. That's so much money. Honey, that's what I work for, so my family is okay. Besides, I haven't treated myself like this in years. It will be my gift for all of us. But Mrs. Eleanor, are you sure? I don't want you to later feel... I'm absolutely sure, I interrupted her. In fact, I'm looking forward to being able to do it. It's been so long since we organized something like this as a family. Oh, how exciting. The kids are going to be so happy. And Robert is going to be so grateful. He always says you're the best mum in the world. Robert says that. My heart swelled with joy. Maybe things weren't as bad as I thought. Maybe this was the opportunity we had been waiting for to become the united family we used to be. Just let me book the house right now before we lose it, Patrice said urgently. Can you give me your card details? I should have said I would make the reservation myself. I should have asked for more details. I should have paid attention to how quickly she had accepted my offer. But I was so excited, so full of hope after years of feeling excluded, that I gave her all my information without thinking twice. Done, Mrs. Eleanor. It's booked from August 15th to the 22nd, a whole week of family. It's going to be perfect. How exciting, honey. And does Robert know yet? I'll tell him right now when he gets home from work. He's going to be thrilled that you made this possible. That night, I went to bed feeling like the luckiest woman in the world. I had invested my savings in something worth more than any amount of money, quality time with my family. A whole week where we could talk, laugh, remember why we loved each other. I dreamed of breakfast on the deck, watching the ocean, of Robert Yathan telling me how the business was going while we drank coffee, of Patrice and me cooking together for the whole family, of my grandchildren running toward me yelling, "Grandma!" on that perfect beach. How naive I was. Because what I didn't know was that Patrice had already planned everything. She already knew exactly what that week would be like, who would sleep where, and what my place would be in her vacation home. What I also didn't know was that call on Tuesday hadn't been a coincidence, and what Patrice had planned for me was much worse than sleeping on a sofa. The flight to Miami was the last time I truly felt happy on that vacation. David and Sophia were so excited, asking me every 5 minutes if we had arrived yet, if the pool was really big, if we were going to see turtles in the ocean. Robert looked relaxed for the first time in months, and even Patrice seemed to be in a good mood. "Mrs. Eleanor, how smart you were to choose this house," she told me as the plane descended. "The children are going to have beautiful memories of this vacation." I smiled, my heart full. Finally, I had done something good. Finally, I had managed to give something valuable to my family. But from the moment we arrived at the house, something felt strange. The house was beautiful, I won't deny it. Exactly as Patrice had described it. White, modern, with a huge deck that looked directly onto the turquoise ocean, a yard with palm trees, and a pool that glittered under the Caribbean sun. It was the paradise I had imagined in my dreams. The problem wasn't the house. The problem was how Patrice acted from the second she set foot in the entryway. "Kids, come here. I'm going to show you your room," she shouted, grabbing the keys from the driver and walking in as if she owned the place. "Robert, my love, bring the heavier suitcases. Mrs. Eleanor, don't worry about a thing, just relax." Relax. I wanted to participate. I wanted to see the rooms, choose where I would stay, explore the kitchen where I planned to prepare them special breakfasts all week. But Patrice had already taken complete control. "Look how gorgeous," she said, opening doors and windows as if it were her house of a lifetime. "Robert, this is our room, isn't it perfect? It has a walk-in closet and a private bathroom with a jacuzzi." Then she ran to another room. "Kids, come see, you have bunk beds and an incredible view of the yard." I followed her like a tourist in my own reservation, carrying my small suitcase, waiting for her to assign me a place in the paradise I had paid for. "And Mrs. Eleanor," she finally said, almost as if she had forgotten about me, "you can stay in the guest room. It's very comfortable. It has its own bathroom. And it's cool with the air conditioning." The guest room. In the house I had rented, I was the guest. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was realizing that the real lady of the house was neither Patrice nor me. It was Karen, Patrice's mother, who arrived that same afternoon in a cab from the airport, as if it had been planned all along. "Honey, what a beautiful house you chose," she shouted to Patrice as she hugged her. "The rooms are huge and that deck, perfect for my morning yoga." Her morning yoga. Mrs. Karen already knew where she was going to exercise in my house. "Mum, I'm going to show you your room. It's the master, with the best ocean view," Patrice said, and I felt like I had been slapped. The master bedroom, for Patrice's mother, and where was I going to end up? "Patrice," I said softly, trying not to sound annoyed in front of the children. "I thought we were all going to organize ourselves together. I didn't know your mum was coming." "Oh, Mrs. Eleanor, I forgot to mention it. My mum is going through a really difficult time since she was widowed, and I thought this vacation would do her a lot of good. You understand, right? Women our age need family support." Women our age? Karen was 62 years old, I was 67, but apparently she deserved the master bedroom, and I deserved the guest room. "Of course, honey," I replied, because what else could I say? The children were there, running around excitedly. and I didn't want to be the sourpuss who ruined the first day. But Robert, my Robert, didn't say anything, not a word of protest. Not even, "Mum, are you comfortable with this arrangement?" Nothing. During that first afternoon, as I unpacked in my guest room, I listened to the voices of Patrice and her mother, organizing the whole week as if I didn't exist. "Tomorrow we can go to the Everglades, but early to beat the heat. Wednesday is perfect for the snorkel tour. The kids will love it. Friday we can have the special dinner on the deck. I brought my secret recipe for barbecue ribs." Her secret recipe? In the kitchen I was paying for. I went downstairs to the living room, hoping to join the family planning, but when I arrived, Patrice and her mother had already finished organizing everything. "Mrs. Eleanor, are you settled in? Look, we already have the whole week planned out. It's going to be awesome." They showed me a handwritten list with all the activities, times, even the menus for each day. Everything decided without consulting me, as if I were a last-minute boarder in my own paid vacation. "And what can I help with?" I asked, trying to sound useful. "Oh, don't worry about a thing," Patrice told me with that smile I was beginning to hate. "You just relax and enjoy. Karen and I have it all organized." Karen and I. As if they were the hosts, and I was the guest who had to be grateful for being included. That night, during the dinner they had prepared with the groceries I had paid for, I had to sit on the edge of the table while Patrice and her mother occupied the head seats, like the true matriarchs of the family. Robert was engrossed in his cell phone, answering work emails. The children were excitedly eating, talking about everything they wanted to do the next day, and I felt like an invisible ghost at my own table. "Mrs. Eleanor, you can stay home resting tomorrow if you like," Karen told me with fake consideration. "The Everglades tour is very strenuous for, well, you understand." "For what? For little old ladies like me?" "No, thank you. I'm going," I replied with more firmness than I had used in years. "I've always wanted to see the gators." Patrice and her mother exchanged a look that I didn't like at all. "Of course, Mrs. Eleanor, whatever you like," Patrice said. "I'll just warn you that it's a lot of walking in the sun." As if I were so fragile that I couldn't walk. As if I hadn't worked on my feet 8 hours a day for 30 years of my life. That night, lying in my guest room, listening to the laughter of Patrice and her mother on the deck, enjoying the wine I had paid for, I understood that I had made the biggest mistake of my life. I hadn't organized a family vacation. I had paid $3,500 to be humiliated in high definition in front of the Caribbean Sea. But what came the next day made me realize that the humiliation was just beginning. And when Patrice thought I was asleep, and I overheard her phone conversation with her sister, I knew that the whole thing had been a trap from the beginning. The second day in Miami Beach was when I understood that I hadn't come on vacation. I had come to witness my own destruction as the matriarch of my family. It all started in the Everglades. Despite Patrice's warnings about how strenuous the tour would be for me, I was the first one on the airboat and the last one to tire of walking among the mangroves. While Karen complained about the heat every 5 minutes, and Patrice looked for shade to take perfect selfies, I listened to the guide explain the nature of the park with the curiosity of a child. "Grandma, did you know that alligators are super smart?" David asked me, taking my sweaty hand as we walked towards the main viewing deck. "Of course, my love. And they're also very brave," I replied, carrying him when he got tired, even though Patrice yelled from behind, "Mrs. Eleanor, don't carry him, you'll hurt your back." Hurt my back? I, who had carried Robert until he was 5 while working 2 shifts. But the real humiliation began that night, when we returned to the house, exhausted and happy. The children had fallen asleep on the way. Robert carried them to their room, and I headed toward mine to take a shower and wash off the dust of the day. When I opened my door, I froze. All my things were packed in my suitcase, placed on the bed as if I were an unwanted guest who had to leave. "Patrice!" I shouted from my room, my heart pounding so hard I thought I was going to have a heart attack. She appeared in the doorway with that fake smile I knew so well, but this time with a chilling glint in her eyes. "Oh, Mrs. Eleanor, I'm so sorry. I forgot to tell you. It's just that my cousin Alex showed up as a surprise with her husband, and they urgently need a room. They're on their honeymoon, can you imagine? I couldn't say no." Her cousin? In my vacation house? And I had to leave my room for strangers? "But Patrice," I said, trying to stay calm, "and where am I going to sleep?" "Oh, don't worry. The sofa in the living room is super comfortable. It even has memory foam cushions. You'll be better off than in any five-star hotel." The sofa. At 67 years old, after paying $3,500, after working my whole life to give my family everything, I was being sent to sleep on the sofa as if I were a beggar. "And can't they stay in another room?" I asked, feeling my voice break. "Which other room, Mrs. Eleanor? My mum is in the master. We're in the second. The children are in the third. There are no more rooms." Yes, there were more rooms. There was a small study in the back that had a pull-out sofa, but clearly that was reserved for storing Patrice's and her mother's things, like it was their personal closet. "Patrice, I paid for this house," I told her with firmness for the first time, and I saw her face change for a second. "Yes, Mrs. Eleanor, and we all thank you very much. That's exactly why we don't want you to worry about anything. We'll make sure everyone is comfortable. You just relax." Relax? On the sofa in the living room? Robert appeared at that moment, sweaty and tired from carrying sleeping children. "What's going on here?" he asked, seeing our tense faces. "Nothing, my love," Patrice immediately said. "I was just explaining to your mum that Alex and Rich arrived as a surprise and we need to rearrange the rooms." "Oh, perfect," Robert said, without even asking for the details. "Did you eat dinner yet?" "I'm starving." Perfect. Did he think it was perfect for his mother to sleep on the sofa while strangers occupied her room? That night, Dwight, was the longest of my life. I lay down on that sofa in my cotton nightgown, covering myself with a thin blanket that Patrice had found in the cleaning closet, listening to the laughter of my entire family, enjoying their rooms in the house I had paid for. I could hear the children excitedly talking in their room about everything they had seen that day. I could hear Robert and Patrice talking quietly in their air-conditioned room. I could hear Karen moving around in the master bedroom that should have been mine. And I was there, on the sofa in the living room, feeling every spring dig into my back, wondering how I had come to be so insignificant in my own family. But what really destroyed me happened at 2 in the morning. Patrice came down to the kitchen to get water and didn't realize I was awake. She spoke softly on the phone, but in that house, everything could be heard. "Susan, you won't believe how easy it was," she was telling her sister with a chilling laugh. "The old lady paid for everything without asking questions. $3,500, can you believe it? And now she doesn't even dare to complain that I sent her to the sofa." Old lady? The old lady who paid for everything. No, she won't say anything. She's one of those mothers-in-law who does anything to look good. Robert is completely on my side now. He doesn't defend her like he used to. Honestly, I even feel sorry for how desperate she is for attention. Desperate for attention? For wanting to be treated with respect on the vacation I myself was paying for. I swear she's pathetic, Susan. Today at the Everglades, she started carrying David like she was a young grandmother, just to get attention. Robert was even embarrassed. Robert was embarrassed of me for carrying my own grandson. But what came next was the dagger that pierced my heart. The best part is that now that I've confirmed she's this submissive, We can proceed with the plan I told you about. Robert is almost convinced that she needs, more specialized care. He says lately he's noticed her being more forgetful, more fragile. Plan? What plan? And what specialized care were they talking about? Yes, sis. In 6 months, Max will have her somewhere where she'll be well cared for, and we can live peacefully without her always being in our business. In that moment, I understood everything. It wasn't just about humiliating me on a vacation. It was about removing me from Robert's life forever. I lay there, collapsed on that sofa, crying silently while Patrice went back up to her room in my house, planning how to commit me to a nursing home, to take my son completely. For the first time in my life, I felt like I wanted to die. I felt like I had nothing left to fight for, that I had raised a son who saw me as a nuisance, that I had given my whole life for a family that considered me a problem to be solved. But then, something happened inside me, something I hadn't felt since I was 23 years old and was widowed with a baby in my arms. Rage, pure rage that burned inside me like volcanic lava. No, I wasn't going to let them send me to a nursing home like I was trash. I wasn't going to allow Patrice to destroy everything I had built with so much sacrifice. And I definitely wasn't going to keep being the submissive old lady who settled for crumbs. Because what Patrice didn't know was that night, while she slept peacefully, believing she had me dominated, I found her cell phone forgotten in the kitchen. And what I discovered there gave me the weapons to destroy her perfect world. At 4 a.m, when I could no longer pretend I was asleep on that sofa that had become my torture bed, I decided to get up to get water. My back hurt as if I had been beaten, and my eyes were swollen from crying silently. The house was completely silent. All I could hear was Karen's distant snoring from the master bedroom, which should have been mine, and the ocean waves, which now sounded like a mockery of my suffering. I walked barefoot toward the kitchen, trying not to make noise in my own vacation home. When I saw it, Patrice's cell phone, lying on the kitchen counter, glowing with the screen on. She had forgotten it after her late-night call with her sister Susan. Normally, I would never have touched someone else's phone. I was raised with values, with respect for other people's privacy. But after hearing how she had called me old and pathetic, after finding out they had a plan to commit me, I had no dignity left to protect. I picked up the phone with trembling hands. The screen was unlocked. Patrice had been so careless in her triumph that she hadn't even set a password. The first messages I saw were with her sister Susan, and what I read confirmed that I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining things. Everything had been calculated from the beginning. Susan, did you convince her to pay yet? Patrice, super easy. I told her it was to bring the family together, and she took the bait. $3,500 directly from her savings. Susan, ha, 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 you're evil, and Robert doesn't suspect anything? Patrice, not at all. He's so wrapped up in business problems that he doesn't even notice what's happening in his house. Business problems? What problems? Robert had always told me everything was going wonderfully. I kept reading, and every message was a deeper stab. Patrice, the best part is that I already have the psychologist on my side. I told him that my mother-in-law is very forgetful, that sometimes she doesn't recognize the grandchildren, that the other day she forgot to turn off the gas stove. Susan, is that true? Patrice, please, the old lady is more lucid than you and me combined, but the doctor doesn't know that. I already have the psychological report that says she needs constant supervision. A psychological report. She had fabricated a false psychological report to justify committing me. My hands trembled so much I almost dropped the phone. But there was more. Much more. I went into the messages with someone named Dr. Wilson, and what I found took the air out of my lungs. Dr. Wilson, Mrs. Patrice, I have the papers for commitment ready. With the psychological report you sent me, there will be no problem arguing mental incapacity. Patrice, perfect. What about the property issue? Dr. Wilson, your husband, as the sole heir, can manage all of his mother's assets. The house, the bank accounts, everything passes to his administration immediately. My house, they wanted my house. The small two-bedroom house that I had worked 30 years for, that I had paid for dollar by dollar with the sweat of my brow, for which I had sacrificed even food just to not miss a single monthly payment. With my eyes full of tears of rage, I continued investigating on that phone that had become my family's Pandora's box. I found a conversation with a certain Attorney Smith that chilled my blood. Attorney Smith, Patrice, the numbers don't lie. Robert's company has debts of $200,000. If you don't pay in the next 3 months, there will be foreclosures. Patrice, what if we sell the old lady's house? Attorney Smith, at $180,000, what it's worth, it covers almost the entire debt. But you need her to sign voluntarily or for Robert to have legal power over her assets. $200,000 of debt. Robert was ruined, and I didn't know it. Patrice didn't just want to take my home out of malice. She needed me out of the way to save her assets with my sacrifice. But what I found next showed me the full extent of this woman's betrayal. Photos. Hundreds of photos in a hidden folder. Photos of Patrice with a man who was not Robert. Kissing, hugging, in elegant restaurants, in hotels, in situations that left no room for doubt. And the messages with that man were saved under the name insurance work. Insurance work. Honey, we almost have everything ready. As soon as they commit the old lady and sell her house, Robert can declare bankruptcy. We lose the company, but we save the money. Patrice. And after that? Insurance work. Then I divorce my wife, you divorce Robert, and we go live in Costa Rica with the clean money. It couldn't be real. It couldn't be that my daughter-in-law was planning not only to steal my house and commit me to a nursing home, but also to destroy Robert economically and emotionally to run away with her lover. I stood there in that kitchen at 5 a.m, reading message after message that shattered every illusion I had about my family. Patrice wasn't just manipulative. She was a professional con artist who had seen Robert and me as the perfect victims. But there was something else. Something that gave me the first spark of hope in days. A message from just 2 hours before, when Patrice thought I was asleep on the sofa. Patrice. Susan, tomorrow night the old lady is going to sign the papers. I'm going to tell her they are health insurance documents, but they are actually the legal powers we need. Tomorrow. I had less than 24 hours before they would make me sign my own civil death sentence. In that moment, standing in that kitchen with my enemy's phone in my hands, I made the most important decision of my 67 years of life. I wasn't going to be the victim anymore. I silently took photos of every message, every conversation, every compromising image. My old cell phone took forever to save each screenshot. But I didn't care. I documented everything, every betrayal, every lie, every piece of evidence that Patrice was not who she pretended to be. When I finished, I put her phone exactly where I had found it and went back to my sofa. But I was no longer the same woman who had gone to bed crying 3 hours earlier. Now I was a woman with information, a woman with evidence, a woman who knew exactly what she was fighting against. Patrice had made the biggest mistake of her life, underestimating an American woman who had raised a son alone, who had worked 2 shifts for 30 years, and who had survived everything life had thrown at her. In the early hours of that morning, while she slept peacefully, Believing she had everything under control, I began planning the most perfect revenge you can imagine. Because if Patrice wanted to play dirty, she was about to discover that she had chosen the wrong opponent and that this submissive old lady had cards up her sleeve she never would have imagined. The dawn of the third day in Miami Beach found me completely different. I was no longer the broken woman who had gone to bed on that sofa. I was a woman with a mission to protect what I had built in 67 years of life and teach Patrice that she had chosen the wrong victim. While the rest of the house slept, I was already awake, mentally organizing every piece of information I had discovered. The photos of the lover, Robert's secret debts, the plan to commit me, the forced sale of my house. Everything was connected like a macabre puzzle, and I was the only one who had the complete picture. The first thing I did was act normal. When Patrice came down to breakfast with her usual fake smile, I already had the coffee ready and was making scrambled eggs with bacon for the whole family. "Oh, Mrs. Eleanor, how did you sleep? Did you sleep well on the sofa?" she asked me, with that sweet voice I now knew was pure poison. "Very well, honey," I lied to her with the best smile I could fake. "Even better than in my bed at home. This ocean air is so relaxing." I saw her shoulders relax. She thought she had won, that she had completely tamed me, that I was so submissive that I was even thanking her for making me sleep on the sofa. How wrong she was. During breakfast, while Robert checked his work emails with a worried look and the children planned their day at the beach, I watched Patrice like a hawk studying its prey before attacking. Every gesture, every word, every look she exchanged with her mother, Karen. "Robert, my love," Patrice said as she poured him more coffee. "Don't you think your mum looks a little tired lately?" There it was, the first move in her plan to make me seem mentally fragile. "Mum?" Robert looked at me carefully for the first time in days. "Are you feeling okay? I noticed you were a little quiet last night." "I'm perfect, my son," I replied with firmness. "It's just that at my age, I don't have the energy you young people do, but mentally, I'm clearer than ever." Patrice frowned for a fraction of a second. She didn't like my answer. She expected me to confirm her narrative of weakness. "It's just that I've noticed her being a little bit, how can I say it without offending you? A little absent-minded," Patrice insisted. "Yesterday in the Everglades, she forgot where she put her purse like 3 times." A lie. I had never forgotten anything, but Robert nodded as if he remembered something. "Now that you mention it, at home too. The other day I came home, and you had left the stove on, Mum." "Left the stove on?" I had never done that in my life, but I saw Patrice smile subtly. She had been planting those ideas in Robert's head for months, maybe years. In that moment, I understood the diabolical genius of her plan. It hadn't just been about humiliating me on this vacation. It had been a long, slow process of making my own son doubt my mental capacity. And I had been so focused on trying to be the perfect mother-in-law that I hadn't noticed. "Robert," I said, looking him directly in the eye, "I have never in my life left the stove on, not for one day. In fact, I always check twice before leaving the house." "Of course, Mrs. Eleanor," Patrice quickly intervened. "It was surely an unimportant oversight. It happens to all of us." But I wasn't going to let her control the narrative anymore. "Patrice, since we're talking about oversights," I said with an angelic smile, "didn't you forget your cell phone in the kitchen last night? I saw it there when I got up for water." She turned pale, completely pale. "My cell phone?" "Yes, right there on the counter. Luckily, I put it away in the drawer so it wouldn't fall, just in case someone saw it lying around." The way she looked at me in that moment confirmed that she knew that I knew, but she couldn't say anything in front of Robert and the children. I spent the rest of the day being the perfect grandmother, I played with David and Sophia in the pool, told them stories from when their dad was little, carried them when they got tired of swimming. But mentally, I was working on my plan. Every time Patrice tried to make a comment about my supposed mental fragility, I proved the opposite. I remembered details she had forgotten, solved problems that no one else could solve. I even helped Robert with some calculations for his work that he had on his phone. "Your mum was always very smart with numbers," he said to Robert. And I saw Patrice get annoyed because it didn't fit her narrative of the senile mother-in-law. In the afternoon, when Patrice went for a walk on the beach, which I knew was to talk to her lover without being overheard, I took the opportunity to get close to Robert. "Son," I said to him while we were alone on the deck, "sit down. I need to tell you something very important about the business." He immediately tensed up. That was his weak point. "It's complicated, Mum," he said, "but I don't want you to worry. We'll get through it." "Very complicated," I insisted with the most loving voice I could muster. "It's just temporary cash flow problems, nothing that can't be solved." Cash flow, $200,000 of debt, was not a cash flow problem. "And is Patrice helping you? She studied administration, right?" "Yes, she supports me a lot. In fact, it was her idea that we not tell you anything so you wouldn't worry. Patrice's idea, of course, to keep me in the dark so she could execute her plan without interference." That night, after everyone went to sleep and I was back on my torture sofa, I started the second phase of my operation. I took out my old cell phone and started searching the internet for everything I had seen on Patrice's phone. I looked for Dr. Wilson, who had made the false psychological report. I looked for Attorney Smith, who was handling Robert's fraudulent bankruptcy. With the house's slow Wi-Fi connection, it took me hours, but I found valuable information. Dr. Wilson had been sanctioned 2 times for falsifying medical reports. Attorney Smith was known for helping his clients hide assets before declaring bankruptcy. Patrice hadn't just chosen me as a victim. She had set up a whole network of professional accomplices to carry out her scam. But the most important thing I did that night was call my neighbor, Martha. "Martha, it's Eleanor. Sorry to call so late. Eleanor, how's the vacation? Did you relax a little?" "Martha, I need you to do me a very important favor and don't tell anyone we spoke." I explained everything to her. Every detail of what I had discovered. Every piece of evidence I had photographed. Martha had been my friend for 20 years. I knew I could trust her. "Eleanor, are you sure about all this?" "I have the proof, Martha. Photos of everything. But I need you to go to my house first thing tomorrow morning and check if there's anything strange, anything Patrice or Robert might have changed." "Of course. And Eleanor, be very careful. If that woman is capable of everything you're telling me, we don't know what else she's capable of." When I hung up the phone, I stayed there in the darkness of the living room, feeling for the first time in days that I wasn't completely alone. I had an ally. I had information. I had evidence. And for the first time since I arrived in Miami Beach, I truly smiled. Patrice had made many mistakes, but the biggest of all had been believing that because I was 67 years old, I was automatically harmless. She had underestimated the power of a woman who had raised a son alone, who had worked 2 shifts until exhaustion to get her family ahead, who had survived poverty, widowhood, and all the small betrayals that life throws at you along the way. The next day, I would discover that my plan was just beginning, and that Martha's call would bring me information that would completely change the game in my favor. The call from Martha came at 8 in the morning on the 4th day, while I pretended to read a magazine on the deck, and Patrice prepared breakfast, singing as if she were the happiest woman in the world. She had no idea that her perfect world was about to collapse. "Eleanor, I found something terrible at your house," Martha whispered to me on the phone, and my heart raced. "What did you find?" Someone was going through your documents. The drawer where you keep the house papers was messed up. And Eleanor, something is missing. The original deed is gone." My blood ran cold. Patrice had sent someone to steal the papers for my house while I was in Miami Beach. Her plan was more elaborate than I had imagined. "But calm down," Martha continued. "I found it. It fell behind the filing cabinet when they were taking it out. The clumsy people didn't realize it." Thank goodness. Without those papers, I had no way of proving the house was mine if Patrice managed to make me sign a power of attorney. "Martha, I need you to do something else. Go to the public registry of property and get a certified copy of my deed. Let there be official proof that I am the sole owner. I'm on my way there now." "And Eleanor, I also spoke to my friend Joe, the lawyer. I told him everything, and he says what they're doing is aggravated fraud, that with the evidence you have, Patrice could go to jail for up to 10 years. 10 years. The information gave me a sense of power I hadn't felt since I arrived at this cursed vacation house. After hanging up, I sat there, watching Patrice serve scrambled eggs with the fakest smile in the world, knowing that in a few hours she was going to ask me to sign the papers that would take everything away from me. But I already had my own plan in motion. During breakfast, while Robert played with the children in the pool and Karen read a magazine in the yard, Patrice approached me with a look of feigned concern. "Mrs. Eleanor, I need to talk to you about something important." Here came the moment I had been waiting for. "Of course, honey, tell me." "It's about your health insurance. Robert asked me to help you update some documents because the legislation has changed, and if we don't sign them before returning to New York, you could lose all your benefits." Liar. What a professional liar. "What kind of documents?" I asked, feigning total innocence. "They are just some powers of attorney so Robert can handle paperwork for you when necessary. You know how complicated government offices are. It's better to have everything prepared, just in case." Just in case they commit me to a nursing home, she meant. "And where are these papers?" "I brought them from New York. I have them in my suitcase. You just need to sign them with 2 witnesses, and I already asked my mum to help us." Her mum as a witness. How convenient. "You know what, Patrice? That sounds perfect," I said. "But first, I want to consult with my own lawyer, just as a precaution." Her face completely changed. "Your lawyer? What for, Mrs. Eleanor? They are standard health insurance documents." "Well, I'm getting old, honey, and at my age it's better to be cautious with everything you sign. Don't you think?" "But Mrs. Eleanor, we need to sign them today. Tomorrow there won't be time because it's Saturday, and the offices are closed." Of course, urgency is always part of scams, pressuring the victim so they don't have time to think. "Don't worry," I told her with my best naive grandmother smile. "My lawyer also works on Saturdays. I'll call him now." And I did call him. But it wasn't my lawyer. It was Martha's friend, Attorney Joe, who was already expecting my call. "Attorney, this is Eleanor Morrison. My friend Martha gave me your number." "Mrs. Morrison, Martha already told me everything. Are they trying to make you sign something?" "Yes, right now. They say they're health insurance documents, but we already know the truth." "Perfect. Here's what you're going to do." Attorney Joe explained every step of my new strategy. I wasn't just going to prevent them from ripping me off. I was going to turn the tables completely. That afternoon, while Patrice nervously walked around the house because I hadn't signed her papers, I made my master move. I called Robert when he was alone on the deck. "Son, sit down. I need to tell you something very important about the business." He immediately tensed up. "What is it, Mum?" "I know you have debts of $200,000. I know the company is bankrupt. And I know Patrice has been hiding very important information from you." He was dumbfounded, literally with his mouth open. "How? How do you know that?" "Because your wife isn't as careful as she thinks, and because a mother always knows when her son is in trouble." "Mum, I didn't want to worry you. Patrice said it was better." "Robert," I interrupted him. "Did you know that Patrice wants me to sign legal powers so you can sell my house without consulting me?" "What?" "No, Mum. The papers she told you to sign were for the health insurance." I saw it in his eyes. Robert wasn't completely in on the scam. Patrice had been manipulating him too. "Son, tomorrow we're going to have a family meeting. You, Patrice, her mum, and me. And you're going to hear some things about your wife that will change your life forever." "Mum, you're scaring me. What are you talking about?" "That your wife is not who you think she is. And tomorrow night, you will know the whole truth." That night, lying for the last time on the living room sofa of my vacation house, I smiled up at the ceiling. Patrice had spent the entire day trying to convince me to sign her papers. She had tried to pressure me, manipulate me, and even cried fake tears, telling me she only wanted to help me. But it was already too late for her. Because while she believed I was a frightened old lady who didn't know how to defend herself, I had been moving pieces on a chessboard she didn't even know existed. Tomorrow, on that same deck where I had felt so humiliated, Patrice was going to discover that she had made the biggest mistake of her life. And when Robert saw the photos of his wife with another man, when he heard the recordings of her conversations, when he found out how she had planned to destroy his own mother, he would know who the woman he had married truly was. The last day in Miami Beach dawned perfectly. Blue sky, crystal clear ocean, a gentle breeze moving the deck curtains. It seemed that even the weather knew something important was going to happen that day. Patrice woke up early, more nervous than ever. She had tried all last night to convince me to sign her papers. She even got to the point of crying, telling me Robert would be angry with her if we returned to New York without the insurance documents signed. What a great actress. She could even make fake tears. "Mrs. Eleanor, please," she begged me during breakfast, while Robert packed the suitcases. "It's just 2 signatures. The attorney says if we don't hand them in today, they'll cancel your medical policy." "I already told you, honey. First, I want my lawyer to review everything. This afternoon, after lunch, we'll have the meeting you suggested." I saw her exchange desperate glances with her mother, Karen. Her perfect plan was crumbling, and she didn't know why. At 4 in the afternoon, as the sun began to set and painted the sky with golden colors, I called the whole family out to the deck. "Family," I said with a firm voice, "I need to talk to all of you about something very important before we go back to New York tomorrow." Robert sat next to me. Patrice and her mother sat opposite. The children were watching cartoons in their room. It was the perfect moment. "Patrice, you said I needed to sign some health insurance documents, right?" "Yes, Mrs. Eleanor, so you don't lose your benefits." "And you said they were standard documents, that nothing would happen if I signed them?" "Exactly." I took out a folder I had prepared during the morning, a folder with all the evidence I had collected. "Then you won't mind if I read exactly what these papers say, right?" She turned pale, but she nodded because she had no other option. "These are not health insurance documents, Patrice. They are complete legal powers of attorney that would give Robert total control over my house, my bank accounts, and would allow him to commit me to any institution he deems necessary." Robert jumped in his chair. "What? Patrice? What is my mum talking about?" "Robert, calm down," Patrice said, with a trembling voice. "There must be a confusion." "There is no confusion," I interrupted her, and I took out the first photo from the folder. "This is a photo of the messages on your cell phone, where you tell your sister Susan that I am a submissive old lady who paid for the vacation without asking questions. Robert took the photo and looked at it. The colour drained from his face. What is this, Patrice? Patrice tried to snatch the photo from him, but I had already taken out the second one. This is another photo where you talk to Dr. Wilson about a false psychological report to justify that I need constant medical supervision. Robert, your mum went through my cell phone. It's a violation of privacy, Patrice shouted, but she already sounded desperate. Is this true, Patrice? Robert's voice was broken. Did you make a false medical report about my mum? It's for your own good. For our own good. Your mum needs special care, and you're too busy to notice. Here is the third photo, I continued relentlessly. Your messages with Attorney Smith about the $200,000 of debt in Robert's company and how you plan to sell my house to pay them off. Robert stood up as if he had been struck by lightning. $200,000? Patrice, you told me it was only $50,000. Robert, calm down. We'll fix this. No, my son shouted for the first time in years. Don't tell me to calm down. You've been lying to me about everything, but I wasn't finished yet. I took out the most devastating photos. And these, Robert, are the photos of your wife with her lover in luxury restaurants and hotels, while you were working like a dog trying to save the business. The silence that followed was deafening. Robert took the photos with trembling hands. Photo after photo of Patrice kissing another man, hugging another man, in situations that left no room for doubt. Who is he? Robert asked with a voice I had never heard from him. A broken, empty voice. Patrice cried, but they were no longer tears of manipulation. They were tears of terror because she knew everything was over. Robert, I can explain. Who is he? My son shouted with all the fury accumulated from years of being deceived. He is someone who understands me, who supports me. Your husband supported you. Your husband worked like a mule to give you the life you wanted. Then I dropped the final bomb, the one that would make everything explode. Robert, here are the messages where Patrice plans to divorce you once they sell my house, to go live in Costa Rica with this man and the money they took from our family. Robert read the messages in silence. I watched his tears fall onto the paper. You were going to leave me? He asked Patrice with the voice of a hurt child. After everything I did for you, you were going to leave me with nothing? Robert, please, we can fix this. Karen, who had been quiet the whole meeting, finally spoke. Patrice, is all this true? Mum, you knew about the plan. You helped me. And that's where Karen showed that she had at least some decency that her daughter did not. I knew you wanted Robert to manage his mum's finances. I didn't know there was a lover, that there were false medical reports, that you had made me an accomplice to a scam. Patrice's family fell apart in 5 minutes. Robert was crying with rage and pain. Karen was yelling at her daughter for deceiving her. Patrice was crying, begging for forgiveness that was no longer useful. And I sat there, watching justice be served after years of humiliation. Robert, I said softly, your wife didn't just want to steal my house. She wanted to destroy you too. She wanted to leave you without a family, without money, and without a home. My son looked at me with tear-filled eyes, and for the first time in years, he was my little boy again. Mum, forgive me. Forgive me for not believing you. Forgive me for letting her treat you like this. There is nothing to forgive, son. A mother always protects her children, even if they don't realize it. Patrice tried one last time to save her own skin. Robert, please, we can go to couples therapy. We can fix this. But Robert was no longer the manipulable man he had been for 5 years. No, Patrice, it's over. Tomorrow morning, I'm starting the divorce proceedings. And when Patrice realized that she had lost everything, her husband, her family, her perfect plan, and that she now faced years in jail for fraud, her last card was to threaten me with something that chilled my blood and changed the course of this entire story. Patrice's final threat came when she had nothing left to lose. When she realized that Robert wasn't going to forgive her, that her mother had repudiated her, and that all her evidence was in my hands, she showed her claws one last time. "Fine!" she shouted, with a voice I had never heard from her, full of pure poison. "If you're going to destroy me, I also have information that can destroy you. Robert, your precious company didn't go bankrupt because of bad luck. It went bankrupt because your partner and you were diverting government money for 2 years. I have all the fake invoices you made." The world stopped. Robert turned white as a sheet. "What are you talking about, Patrice?" "I'm talking about the government contracts you inflated, the jobs you charged for without finishing, the materials you never bought, but reported as expenses." Robert slumped into the chair. I saw in his eyes that it was true. "Mum," he said with a broken voice, I didn't know it was illegal. My partner told me everyone did it, that it was the only way to be competitive." Patrice smiled with pure malice. "Eleanor, if you report me for fraud, I'll report Robert for corruption. Your perfect son will go to jail for 10 years. In that moment, I understood the endgame. Patrice had been collecting incriminating information on Robert from the beginning, not out of love, but as life insurance for when this moment arrived. But she didn't know the woman she was messing with. "Patrice," I said with a calm that surprised even me. "You're right. Robert made serious mistakes. And do you know what we're going to do about it?" "What?" she asked, thinking she had won. "We're going to confess everything. Tomorrow morning. Robert is going to return every last dollar that wasn't his. He's going to pay the fines. He's going to face the consequences of his actions. And he's going to rebuild his life honestly." Robert looked at me astonished. "Mum?" "Because that's how my mother raised me. And that's how I raised you. Mistakes are confessed, repaired, and learned from. But they are never ever turned into chains for others to manipulate us." Patrice couldn't believe what she was hearing. "But I would rather he pay for his mistakes with dignity than live his whole life blackmailed by you." In that moment, Robert stood up, walked over to me, and hugged me like he hadn't hugged me since he was a child. "You're right, Mum. We're going to fix everything, no matter the consequences." Patrice had lost her last card. Her blackmail didn't work because she didn't understand that for a true family, honesty is worth more than money. 3 months later, I am here telling you this story from my refurbished little house in New York City. Robert kept his word. He confessed everything, returned the money, paid the fines, and spent 6 months in a minimum security prison. But when he got out, he was truly free. No debts, no lies, no pending blackmail. Patrice faced charges for fraud, falsification of documents, and attempted scam. She is serving 5 years in prison. Her lover abandoned her as soon as he found out she no longer had money to steal. Karen tearfully apologized to me. She didn't know the magnitude of what her daughter was planning. Now she comes to invite me on Sundays, and we drink coffee while we talk about our grandchildren. Robert divorced, sold everything he had left of the company, and now works as an engineer for an honest construction company. He earns less money, but he sleeps peacefully every night. My grandchildren come to stay with me on the weekends. David already knows how to make pancakes the way my grandmother taught me, and Sophia is learning to crochet while she tells me about school. But the most important thing I gained from all this was not justice. It was something I had lost without realizing it for years. My dignity. I learned that true love is not begged for, that respect is not negotiated, That at 67 or at any age, a woman has the right to be treated as what she is, a valuable human being, not a nuisance to be tolerated. I learned that being good doesn't mean being submissive, that being loving doesn't mean accepting mistreatment, that being a grandmother doesn't mean becoming invisible. For years, I believed my job as a mother was over when Robert got married. Now I know that my job as a woman never ends. I have the right to take up space, to have opinions, to be heard, to be respected. Not all women of my generation had the opportunities that young women have today, but that doesn't mean we have to settle for scraps of affection or crumbs of respect. If there is one thing I want you to take away from my story, it is this. It is never too late to defend yourself, never too late to set boundaries, never too late to say enough is enough. And if you ever find yourself in a similar situation, remember, Ricky, the family that makes you feel small is not family. A true family hugs you when you fall. It doesn't push you to fall harder. Now when I wake up every morning in my little house, water my geraniums, make my coffee, and watch the sun rise over my garden, I know that this is my life. A life I built with work, defended with courage, and that I am going to live with dignity until the last day. Because an American woman who has lived 67 years, who raised a son alone, who worked until exhaustion for her family, and who survived all the betrayals life threw at her, deserves to live her golden years in peace, with respect, and surrounded only by true love. If this story touched your heart, if it made you reflect on the respect that our elders deserve, or if you know someone who needs to hear this message, leave me a comment telling me where you are following us from. Like this video. If you believe all grandmothers in the world deserve to be treated with dignity, and subscribe to keep sharing real stories that teach us that it's never too late to stand up for yourself. Because at the end of the day, the sweetest revenge is not destroying the person who hurt you. It's living so well that they regret ever having underestimated you.